You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information. The views and opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily represent those of the network, its advertisers, owners, or sponsors. You're listening to the Podcast Detroit Network. Visit www.podcastdetroit.com for more information. The views and opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily represent those of the network, its advertisers, owners, or sponsors.
Hey, everybody. I'm back again. This is Justin Gephart with Cultivating Health Podcast. Second round, second go at this. Hopefully it goes a little bit better than it did last time, but either way, I'm looking forward to it. So today's topic I'm going to try to talk about is employee wellness and employee engagement, the combination of the two, and why that's pivotal in our working life and our working world and corporations and companies and et cetera. So it's kind of become really important to me over the last couple of years, my personal circumstances, my personal experiences, and I've taken a lot of time to do some research and do some reading and do some learning around employee wellness. I've worked in employee wellness a little bit, like I said previously in the last podcast. So I really taken a lot of time, really done a lot of research and learned a lot, and I'm hoping I can share that with everybody right now. So I guess a couple things I'm going to continually come back to and continually repeat. I figured I'd tell you that up front here is a couple different phrases that I've kind of come up with that I think that are really important. But the first one is employees over profit. I think a lot of times companies nowadays, the business working world nowadays, they put profit over employees, and we'll talk about why I think it's very important to go, why it is very important, crucial really, to kind of reverse that and put employees over profit. And the second thing I'm going to talk about a lot or mention a lot is a culture of wellness, and I think that's very important as well. And we'll talk about the next hour really is about why that's important. But nevertheless, I thought I would give everybody a heads up on my propensity to refer back to those. Another little quick reminder is I mentioned last time I was trying to put a Facebook page together, but I finally did that. I don't know if it's all that pretty at the moment, but it is at Cultivating Health Podcast on Facebook. Check that out. I'm sharing a lot of cool information, interesting information, and then also my email, which are the Cultivating Health Podcast email. So it'd be cultivatinghealthpodcast@gmail.com. So feel free to reach out and get in touch with me if anybody hears this and would like to talk more. So first, I'm going to try to split it up a little bit, talk about employee wellness first, and then go on to employee engagement and why the combination of the two is pivotal, really. So first and foremost, I want to mention the fact that chronic diseases, they cost to treat on average per year, and you can find this number, a variation of this number, and from multiple sources, but I got this one specifically from the Milken Institute, which is a economic think tank out there in California, but they found that on average it costs about $1 trillion a year to treat chronic diseases. Now, it's interesting because the most common chronic diseases, things like heart disease, diabetes, obesity, things of that nature, overwhelmingly, those chronic diseases are mostly, if not wholly, preventable. So the idea that we're spending $1 trillion a year on mostly preventable diseases seems kind of silly to me. But nevertheless, that's the place that we're at in our culture, in our country here. So with that being said, what has dawned on me is the fact that, in thinking about this, how can we remedy this? What gives us our best opportunity, our best chance? I thought, okay, where do American citizens spend the most time? A vast majority of their time, daily and weekly. And that obviously is at work, right? I would say on average we work 40 hours a week, maybe even more than that for a lot of people. So I think the workplace is a great opportunity to try to make an impact on that chronic disease issue that we have. Again, $1 trillion a year we're spending on what could be mostly, if not wholly, preventable. So again, it's a great opportunity for the disease management, reversal of the disease, and the prevention of the disease as a whole by just doing things at work, creating those programs at work. So why is employee wellness important? Well, obviously the prevention and the reversal and management of disease, but it's even more than that. So we have increased employee morale, so people are feeling happier at work. Increased productivity, because obviously if we're happier, more often than not, happier people are much more productive in all walks of life, in all areas of your life. Decreased absenteeism, meaning if we're healthier and we're happier, we're probably going to be at work more often. So therefore, we're being more productive. Decreased presenteeism. I don't know if anybody's aware of what presenteeism is, if you've ever even heard of presenteeism, but basically what presenteeism is you're going to work while you're sick. And why is that a bad thing? Well, obviously, if we're not feeling very good, we're probably not going to be very productive. So obviously, it can cause productivity loss. That can just, I guess, further poor health, and it can create exhaustion in the worker, and then also it can create those epidemics, if you want to call them that, within the workplace of sicknesses or contagious disease, anyways, colds, flus, things of that nature. So presenteeism, bad. Fewer workers' compensation claims. Again, the healthier, happier, stronger we are, the less likely we are to file those workers' compensation claims. Increase employee satisfaction. We kind of talked about that, but again, the happier and healthier we are, the more productive we're going to be, the higher our morale is going to be. And here's the first time when I'm going to mention the culture of wellness. So I think if we implement a culture of health and wellness from various aspects, and we'll get into that a little bit later on, but the better off we're going to be as a company, as an individual, as employees, as teams of employees. Lower healthcare costs. We're going to talk about that in a second, but that's obviously huge. Less unscheduled paid time off, which I think is huge as well, because if for missing days, these individuals that are missing those days aren't very productive in their work, and in that particular position needs somebody else to fill in for them. So that position now, that person who's filling in is being less productive with their job, and it's just kind of a snowball effect there. I think creating a workplace that employees do not want to leave. We're going to talk about that later also, but I think that's huge as far as retention goes. Retaining employees as long as humanly possible, I think, is best for production long term, and productivity is dollars, is money, is profit. So it provides all sorts of other types of cost savings, but those are the few that I wanted to mention off the bat. And then just an overwhelmingly verifiable competitive advantage, and we'll get into that kind of throughout this whole hour here that I have with you. So we mentioned the chronic diseases there, right? Roughly $1 trillion worth of expenditure on trying to treat those chronic diseases. So it's interesting because the individuals or the workers, the employees with chronic disease, they take up roughly half of a company's health insurance claims, which I find to be incredibly interesting. And what's even more interesting is it came out in 2014. There was a study. It was done by the National Business Group on Health and then Truven Health Analytics. And I don't know if it's the headquarters in Ann Arbor, but Truven does have an office in Ann Arbor, so it's fairly local that Truven was involved in this. But it was interesting because they studied over 100 companies that included just under 4 million employees. So it's a significantly large population that they looked at. And in this population, they found that on average, the cost of health insurance coverage per employee, that's per employee for group healthcare coverage. So per employee, the average was $10,370 per person. So think about that. So we have half of the claims that are taken out by employees are from chronically ill employees, and those chronic diseases overwhelmingly are preventable, if not mostly preventable. So again, it just seems kind of silly to me that we're not utilizing our time at work to try to make an impact on these chronic diseases. So I think that's super interesting. I wanted to share that with everybody. So those at-risk employees, those employees that have those chronic diseases, those employees that are going to take up a huge percentage of those health insurance claims. Now, what am I talking about specifically? What kind of employees? What type of chronic diseases? Well, I kind of listed them a little bit ago, but people who are obese, people who have diabetes, people who have blood pressure, people who have heart disease, even the people who have the pre-diabetes. There are certainly quite a few, I guess, of groups of individuals that could be considered at risk. Now, why is that important, and how do you figure that out? How do you find out who those people are and how many at-risk individuals you have working for you? Well, that's where health risk assessments or personal health assessments kind of come into play. And what those consist of are, basically lifestyle questions, surveys, questionnaires, and then biometric testing. So we, figure out BMI, body fat, blood pressure, A1C, which is blood sugar levels, and then pretty much see what our issues are as a company and a corporation. Now that's where obviously every company, every corporation is going to be different, which is going to dictate the approach and the design of a wellness program. But nevertheless, we can ask all of our employees to participate in this, and hopefully we can get a good outcome, get a good participation with these HRAs, health risk assessments, and biometric screenings, and hopefully we can help individuals minimize those issues with the program that we offer. Also, find the underlying cause, hopefully, of some of these issues or diseases that these individuals are fighting or dealing with, and maybe even help reverse their issues. So that kind of falls into the functional medicine category that we spoke about in the last podcast. So when it comes to wellness programs, there seems to be a couple different approaches at this point. One approach is the lifestyle management approach, where you're kind of trying to dictate lifestyle choices, right? Exercise, nutrition, things of that nature. Something interesting. Still, a lot of places, a lot of companies, a lot of corporations, they require their employees to sit all day at a desk. And it's interesting because about 60% of Americans don't get the recommended amount of physical activity. So throughout the day, right? So 60% of Americans. So pair that with the $1 trillion that we're spending on chronic diseases, and there's a pretty significant link there, in my opinion, as far as lack of exercise goes. So they're right in and of itself is a good opportunity for companies and corporations. That mixed with the fact that most Americans have a poor diet, and I think the combination there, again, provides a very good opportunity for most companies and corporations to make an impact there, which is ultimately going to impact their bottom line in a beneficial way, a positive way. So the 60% of Americans not getting the recommended amount of physical activity, mixed with the overwhelming amount of Americans not consuming a proper diet, we can also add to the mix that roughly 40% of American adults currently are obese, not just overweight, but not overweight or obese, just strictly obese, about 40% of American adults right now. So again, all this just kind of plays into the fact that we have a great opportunity with our workplace wellness programs to make an impact on these issues. The general focus, like I said, of these lifestyle management programs would be exercise, nutrition, and then I think overwhelmingly the best approach to this particular branch of a wellness program would be environment, dictating an individual's environment that is beneficial to their overall health. And that would be things such as, like I said, minimizing those sedentary style workplaces. So give them opportunities to get up and walk around, give them opportunities to stand up while working, give them opportunities to, take the stairs as opposed to taking the elevator, things of that nature, where people are, moving as often as possible while still being productive. it's been shown actually in many studies that I've read that non-exercise specific physical activity is more important than that hour and a half or 2 hours of specific focused exercise at a gym 3 or 4 times a week, right? So if we're up and we're moving, whether it be cutting the grass or shoveling snow or whatever it might be, if we're up and moving, even if it's not focused specific exercise, it's going to benefit us more so down the road than if we go to the gym and, work out like crazy people for an hour and a half or 2 hours, but then sit down and not move the rest of the day. That non-exercise specific physical activity has been shown to benefit us more so. So again, being at work 40 hours a week, we have a great opportunity to make an impact on that. The other branch would be chronic disease management. And this chronic disease management is looking at those HRAs and figuring out those health risk assessments and figuring out what type of diseases that we're dealing with as a company or corporation, and trying to instill some programs that classes, evidence-based curriculums, things of that nature, that deal with those specific issues head on, right? Help the individuals that are fighting with those issues, help them manage them better. Or even if we're lucky, if we're really working hard and trying and motivated, we can try to help those individuals reverse their symptoms or their disease by instilling a lot of those diet and exercise approaches that we've talked about. So I kind of mentioned already that every program is going to be a little bit different because of the population that each company corporation has. So what are some of those possible pieces of a wellness program that we can utilize? Well, first and foremost, I would say one-on-one wellness coaching, right? So we can utilize things such as motivational interviewing, which would be helping the individual find the internal motivation for behavior change, right? Kind of talk them into believing that they need to make changes, that they need to do things for their own well-being and to help them feel better about themselves and feel better physically, emotionally. Maybe it's for family, maybe it's for other reasons that they find that they want to make improvements. We can help in this one-on-one coaching, help with maybe they haven't really exercised before. We can help them put together an exercise program that can fit their needs, fit their fitness level, get them started where they don't start out working too hard, where they kind of get burned out, but we got a gradual approach where they build up and they enjoy it and they start seeing results. And then obviously things like nutrition programs, diet programs, recipes, how to cook, what to cook, how often to eat, when to eat, things of that nature. And again, this is gonna change per individual and per company and corporation. Also, staff informational presentation. So we go from one-on-one things to big groups of individuals. We can, during staff meetings, we can do informational presentations on exercises, on nutrition, talk about those recipes, on functional medicine. Again, I've mentioned that before, where we are talking about how to deal with the underlying causes of certain diseases and certain issues that people are dealing with and are living with and trying to fight. Stress management. Stress is a huge, huge issue among pretty much all workers in some way, shape, or form at some point. So I think stress management would be a huge, crucially important piece of a wellness program. In fact, the National Small Business Association, they did a study and they found that 42% of small business employees list high stress levels as a well-being concern, and that was the top of the list. So again, it's something that's crucially important to be a part of their wellness program. Now, what kind of things can be involved as far as stress management goes? Well, we have things such as guided imagery, which I've done a few times before. Meditation, guided imagery and meditation are kind of roughly the same, but meditation is huge. There's been a link actually between telomere length and meditation. I want to say that we spoke about telomere length the last podcast, the last time I was able to talk to everybody. So it's really interesting. I wish I could talk more about meditation and stress management techniques, but again, I only have so much time. Hopefully we can get into that later. But that's a huge growing field and approach that a lot of people are utilizing. So I certainly recommend everybody, if you got some time, do some research on those stress management techniques. You can also bring in some experts and have them help you do guided imagery and some meditation and any other techniques that might help people with their stress management. EAPs, employee assistance programs, kind of along the same lines as mental health type stuff. Lunch and learn presentations, which I've done many of. Basically, maybe put together a healthy meal, maybe get it catered, and bring employees in and give them a presentation. Let them eat some good healthy food, and give them a presentation on something good, exercise related, nutrition related, just to help them educate themselves a little bit and hopefully get them motivated to help make some beneficial lifestyle choices. Walking routes, maybe put up walking routes either outside around the grounds, the campus of whatever company you may be working for, or even within the building. You could map out some, up the stairs, around the corner, down a hall, maybe map out a 2 mile path that would allow some individuals to, get up out of their desk, away from their desk, out of their seat, and get a little exercise throughout the day. Point of decision prompts. I really like those as ideas because you could put those, maybe at an elevator, where you could put it next to an elevator and say, well, if you took the stairs, you can burn this many extra calories. Or if you took the stairs, you could, elevate your heart rate this much, which could help you long term because of this. So I think things like that, posters, pictures, whatever things people could come up with and at those different points of decisions, maybe even in the cafeteria if you have one at your work, help out that way. So really just kind of reminding people that, hey, you know what? I think you should make a decision that's going to benefit you long term health wise over maybe one that might hinder you a little bit health wise long term. Stretch breaks. I think these are a great idea. I've done these throughout my professional career, kind of go through into different departments, different areas throughout the company, and just, get them up and away from their desks, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, and just kind of stretch out with them. Maybe do some, pretty much everything from your head all the way down to your toes, stretch everything out, get the blood flowing a little bit. Everybody seems to enjoy them and makes everybody feel better. Stop by information tables every so often. Maybe set it up in a cafeteria, set it up in a hallway where people are, where people might be, change it up on a regular basis, and just kind of have some pamphlets and some papers and articles out there just to, be able to talk to employees, talk to individuals who might want to talk to you, might have some questions. And again, just trying to get some information out there and make sure people know that the company cares about them and their health, and just constantly trying to be a presence as far as reminding individuals of healthy behaviors and that they have the power to do so. Work environment assessments. I think this is great too because, like I said, we sit down a lot, unfortunately, and I think knowing how to sit properly, knowing how to utilize your computer screen properly, your head positioning, your wrist positioning, your back positioning, shoulder positioning, things of that nature, I think is very very important for overall health and minimizing those aches and pains. Standing workstations, huge fan of those. Proper lifting techniques, again, depending on the type of work that we're doing, type of company that we're in. And then, like I mentioned, the proper computer use and various other, infinite other approaches to things of that nature. Food availability, I think that's a huge aspect of a wellness culture, a health-focused culture within a workplace. If your vending machine is filled with Oreos and Mountain Dew, you're not really setting a great tone as far as wanting your workers to be healthy. So that's an option. Look at what kind of food that you're providing in vending machines, maybe even supplying fresh fruits and vegetables throughout the campus that you work at, maybe in the cafeteria or maybe even in vending machines, making sure that those options are available. You can't force people to eat healthy, but giving them the option is allowing them to at least have the option to eat healthy. So you can't make that good decision if the option's not available. Smoothies, I'm a huge fan of smoothies. Again, if you provide those fresh fruits and vegetables, maybe provide a blender or two in a cafeteria if you have one, if means are available to do so. Just provide any type of options, any cafeteria if you have one, that would allow them to make those beneficial health choices, food choices, and just make sure that health food is available. Again, you can have a little bit of both, have some health foods available, and then also some maybe not so healthy foods. But again, giving people a choice is better than not giving them a choice at all. And then it doesn't just stop with exercise and diet. We're going to get into employee engagement here in a minute, but you can also do things such as financial health assistance. Maybe for a lunch and learn presentation, bring in an investment specialist or a bank employee of some sort, and let people know what their options are for investments or savings accounts or checking accounts, IRAs, retirement, etc. And just so people are aware of their options again. And I think that's a huge stressor for a lot of people, the money situations, money issues. And if we're able to remedy that in the workplace, I think that's going to go a long way for how a worker views the workplace, and the minimizing the stress of the worker in their personal life and their finances. Again, it's all about building that culture of health and wellness within the workplace. So we've talked about a few things, and again, there's many other possibilities that could be included in wellness programs, but there are those are a few of them. So when it comes to wellness programs, probably the biggest issue is participation rates, and that probably goes without saying, but that's due to lack of interest. So how do you remedy that issue, that big issue? And first off, like I kind of already mentioned before, that employers, they cannot force employees to live healthier lifestyles, and they can't force employees to participate in this. It's actually against the law to do that, but nevertheless, even if you did do it, penalties for not participating really hurt morale. So for example, when we were in phys ed class, growing up, middle school, high school, elementary school, if you got in trouble and you were forced to do push-ups, right, you kind of created a negative association to push-ups, which is a negative association to exercise in your mind. So you didn't want to get in trouble because you didn't want to do push-ups. Well, that's not what you want to do, right? If you punish somebody for not participating in a wellness program, they're going to create a negative association to that wellness program and maybe wellness in general. And we obviously don't want that to happen. So we can't penalize people for not participating. And that just overall doesn't contribute to a supportive workplace environment. I think everybody deserves to be and should be happy in the workplace. So the employee buy-in for a wellness program is certainly key. And how do you do that? Well, you give them a voice. You allow them to give you the ideas about things that they would want to participate in if they were to participate in a wellness program. So provide surveys, have them fill out surveys for you. Give them options and have them pick the best one that they like, that they like the best. Give them open space in this survey to write their own ideas. And obviously, when, where, how they would like to participate in a wellness program. The pieces of a wellness program, when they'd want to participate in it, how they would, etc. So give them a voice. Make sure that you're designing it, but kind of make sure that they're designing it in a sense. You're designing it around what they want, because that's going to maximize participation. Incentivize feedback. So if you just give them a survey and say, hey, will you fill this out for me? Odds are people probably aren't going to do it. People are busy. But if you say, hey, if you fill this out for me and then bring it to me, I'll give you a gift card, or I'll give you $20 or what have you, and really incentivize people to do that. It's shown, good results come from it. Employees, they must trust the program and the employer's motives. So it requires visible, obvious, and continuous leadership from the uppity-ups, the CEOs on down, all managers, and a continual example, lead by example. Be open and honest with employees. Tell them why the program exists, why you should participate, and just motivate them to participate and participate themselves. I think is really important that those high uppity ups participate. Marketing obviously is necessary to generate that excitement about the program. Create posters, hang up posters, emails, send out continual emails reminding them of that, what's going on, that this is available to them. Write some articles, get those articles out as often as possible. Maybe write some blogs where people can, read about different health-related topics. Community involvement, get the people in the community involved, companies, businesses in the community. Maybe gyms can offer a discount if they're, participate in this wellness program. Restaurants, grocery stores, go out and talk to these community businesses and see if they'd be willing to participate. If you buy so many apples, you can get a certain amount of points in the wellness program, which then you can receive an incentive of some sort in the end because of it. Something along those lines. But again, I think it's super important to have this top-down push from the head honchos of the business. Have the bosses talk about it, promote it, and encourage the employees to participate as well as participate themselves. Very important. I think no employee who works at a place with a wellness program should be afraid to participate in the wellness program. And why would they be afraid? Because maybe they're not certain that the uppity ups in the company want them to participate. So it's very, very crucial that these CEOs and managers motivate individuals and encourage individuals to participate. Now, what other things could get people to participate? Things like fitness competitions, water intake competitions. Competitions tend to yield participation because of the social nature of it. And just, people competing among themselves or people competing against other people, it usually breeds participation. Sporting teams, put sporting teams together. So kind of a work team there, maybe soccer team or softball team, something like that. Again, gets people involved. And then also you could put together outings, maybe going to a Tiger game or a hockey game, something along those lines. And then obviously the incentives have their place, like I've said before, but it could be for even really, really small things. It could be anything from money to time off, even to public recognition, badges, T-shirts, stickers, something. Give these people something for participating. It's going to keep them coming back because we all like to be rewarded for things, right? You can provide cookbooks and kitchens. Again, it's all about building that environment of health and that culture of health. Reward unused sick days or paid time off. Give them money if they don't use it. You can conduct smaller walking meetings, smaller walking meetings for work as opposed to sitting in an office someplace. Get outside, utilize a nice day. If I talked about the frequent emails, personal success stories, allow people to share their success stories, or if they don't want to, but they give you permission, you can talk about somebody else and what they've been able to accomplish while utilizing the wellness program options. So again, it's all about employees over profit, making sure that you're focusing on your employees and making sure that they are the number one priority in your company, because by making your employees number one priority, you can increase their productivity, which in the long run is going to benefit the company as far as dollars go. So how do you launch a program of this nature? Well, we've already kind of talked about we got to determine the needs of the employer and the employee, and that's all done with those health risk assessments and those biometric screenings. Analyze that data and then create the plan based off of what the company needs. I think it's a good idea to kind of combine both the lifestyle and the chronic disease management, just attack every possible angle, and I think that could certainly work. You got to have that intense marketing and advertising and communication, making sure that you're constantly out there reminding individuals that this is available to them, and then incentivize. We all like to be rewarded for doing things, and I think it's important to do so in a wellness program. How do you sustain a program like this? Well, again, the executives, management needs to buy in and participate and continue to encourage. I think that is huge and probably the most crucial thing about any wellness program. I talked about the marketing, advertising, communication. The incentives are obviously important. Fresh new offerings, change it up. Don't do the same thing all the time. tweak it a little bit to keep people interested. Competition, we mentioned the competitions. Employee feedback, again, continually surveying, continually asking, continually getting feedback on what people like, what they don't like, what they want to do, how else it should be done, how else they want to be included. So again, focus on that. It needs to be employee driven for employees, and I think that's would certainly make it more successful. Something interesting here I found in the Journal of Occupational and Environmental Medicine, they found that severe obesity among employees costs about $1,800, cost the company per employee about $1,800 a year in presenteeism costs, right? So that's $1,800 that's just kind of being thrown away because of that presenteeism, being at work and not doing anything, and that's associated with obesity. So I thought that's an interesting little stat there after I got done talking about all that employee wellness stuff. And I think wellness programs can certainly make a huge impact on obesity, long term, as far as many other chronic diseases. So we have another few stats here I wanted to share with you. According to the National Small Business Association survey, 48% of businesses with 2 to 9 employees said their employees take very few sick days. Now, 2 to 9, that's a very small range. I get it. But the reason I wanted to say that is because 57% of those employees said that they work when they're sick. And that's kind of goes back to presenteeism. And that goes back to lack of productivity, which costs companies significant amounts of money. And having those wellness programs, I think, can make a significant impact on minimizing those numbers. So something else I found here from that Milken, a couple more things from Milken. It's projected by 2023. This is kind of a few-year-old study, but 2023, there'll be a 42% increase in cases of the 7 chronic diseases, which will cost $4.2 trillion in treatment and lost economic output. Now think about that. These chronic diseases, which are mostly, if not wholly preventable, can cost about $4.2 trillion in treatment. So we could certainly avoid that. So these numbers are just staggering, given that most of it can be avoided. Lastly, the lowering the rates of obesity could produce productivity gains of $254 billion and avoid $60 billion in treatment expenditures annually. So that, again, huge numbers, and that's all based off of something that is mostly, if not wholly, preventable. So again, I want to make sure I hit that as hard as possible because these wellness programs can certainly make a huge impact on that. So again, healthier employees equal healthier profits and happier companies and corporations. So that's, again, the numbers that I just kind of said kind of prove that. So hopefully that was a good little overview for wellness programs. Now let's go on and see how employee wellness programs combined with employee engagement can make all the difference. So a wellness program focuses heavily on the exercise and nutrition initiatives, like we've obviously kind of talked about, but including the employee engagement aspect allows us to focus on more aspects of those 7 dimensions of wellness that I've kind of mentioned than just the physical. So we can build those healthier, happier, more productive employees. So the 7 dimensions of wellness: social, like I said, physical, environmental, mental, emotional, spiritual, things like that. So what is employee engagement? It is a property of the relationship between the employer and the employee. So again, how those two view one another is another way of looking at it. It is all about the culture that is built over time in a working environment, from the CEO to the bottom. So I think I've worked multiple places. A lot of people probably have, but you kind of get a general sense of how the place operates that you work at and how the company views you as an employee. And I think every place that I've worked, and just like you, every place that you've worked, I'm sure there's been a little bit of a different feeling while you're working there. And that kind of comes back to employee engagement, how the relationship between the employer and the employee. So an engaged employee is one who is fully absorbed by and enthusiastic about their work and takes positive action to further the organization's reputation and interests. So obviously an employee has to love their job, love their employer to really want to push their reputation and interests, right? So again, it all comes back to employees over profit. Do whatever is necessary to make sure your employees are happy and healthy, engaged, motivated in the workplace, and you will be rewarded handsomely for it as a corporation in the end. I'm sure of it. So again, why is employee engagement important? Well, that increased employee morale. Again, happy employees are productive employees. Increased productivity. Again, happy employees that feel motivated and feel like they matter to the company. They're more productive. Decreasing absenteeism. You want to be at work. You enjoy being at work. You're less likely to take time off, especially the unscheduled paid time off, where you just get up in the morning, you don't want to go because you hate it so much. You're going to call in sick. Increased employee satisfaction and morale. Kind of talked about that. Increased employee retention. I think that is huge. I like to use the analogy of Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, the most successful coach-quarterback combination in the NFL history, and they've been together for how long? 18 years? I don't think any other quarterback-coach combination has been together that long, and I think there's definitely it's not a coincidence. So creating a workplace employees do not want to leave. One place that I want to use as an example here is the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Now, a lot of places do this. A lot of big companies, successful companies do this. So it's not just, I guess, unique to Bill and Melinda Gates, but one thing that they offer in their benefits package is 1 year of maternal leave and 1 year of paid paternal leave. So again, that's something that not everybody is offering. And that is a huge perk that is 100% employee focused. So if you get a job with Bill and Melinda Gates, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, are you going to want to do anything to jeopardize your employment there because they offer perks like this? No. So that's employee retention, which in the long run is going to benefit the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation because these individuals are going to work hard because they enjoy working there. They know that the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation value them, so they're going to stay there for a long time. So they're going to retain those employees, be mostly productive, and the company in the long run is going to benefit from it, both monetarily and every other way possible. Verifiable competitive advantage. So Google is another one. Google, when you do any research about employee wellness programs or employee engagement programs or how companies treat their employees in general, Google is always at the top of the list. And they offer so many perks to employees, things such as free healthy meals, the benefits packages similar to Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. They offer free rides to and from work. They have times where you can bring your dog to work. They have so many perks that are employee focused that everybody wants to work there. Nobody wants to leave. And what are they? They're a multi-billion-dollar corporation, one of the most successful on the planet. And I don't think that's a coincidence. And it's an awesome recruiting tool as well. So you can get the best and brightest minds because everybody wants to work there. So according to the State of American Workplace report, so State of the American Workplace, they reported that 70% of U.S. workers do not like their job. So think about that. That means only 30% of U.S. workers like their job. So that obviously gives us another great opportunity here with our employee wellness and employee engagement programs. So that obviously, it creates an environment where many workers are emotionally disconnected from their workplace, and obviously that means they're going to be less productive than their engaged employees and their engaged counterparts. So I think it goes without saying that salary is important, but beyond salary, psychological and social fulfillment can determine which employees are motivated to stay, perform, and contribute to organizational success. So again, it's not just eat right and exercise. We have to make sure that we're providing an environment for our employees where they feel socially accepted, where mentally and emotionally they're not overworked and they feel as if their existence there, their employment there means something. Their position means something. Their word means something. Their direct superior respects them and allows their voice to be heard. Again, they need to feel valued, fulfilled. I think I heard one time success without fulfillment is failure. And I think that's huge when it comes to especially our work environment, our working life. I mean, if we don't feel fulfilled by our work, we're going to get burned out, and it's going to happen quick, and it's going to happen often, and we're going to be very unhappy and less fulfilled and less productive. So if these individuals can be confident that their voice matters, that they're secure in their position at their employer, and they have the ability to develop and advance their career, I think, again, these types of things are what we need to be focusing on when it comes to having a successful workforce and a successful company second, right? So if we can have a successful workforce and successful individuals, our company is only going to benefit from it. So we got to get to the heart of what matters to employees, right? Again, I can't stress this enough, that employees need to be the focus of our corporations and companies, and the bottom line will take care of themselves. I'm certain of it. So allowing workers to do the work that they want to do a percentage of the time. Now, I think that's a phenomenal idea. I read that about Google, that I want to say it's 20% of the time, so maybe 8 hours a week. Even if it's outside of their realm of expertise, outside of their job description responsibilities, they allow workers to 8 hours a week get involved with whatever it is that they want to get involved in and work in. Why? Because that keeps people motivated, keeps them happy, changes things up a little bit. They don't get stale, they don't get burned out. And I think it's a phenomenal idea. So I beg everybody to look into that. So surveys consistently show that the single most important factor in employee engagement is an employee's relationship with his or her direct manager. Think about that. It makes sense. It's kind of common sense, but I think the push for that and the lack of that in a lot of different companies it's overwhelming. It's huge, and it's very common. What's interesting is companies, they're not nearly selective enough about who they name as their managers at every level, right? So most people become managers either because they were top individual performers or because they've been around the company a long time. So that doesn't make much sense as far as why somebody deserves to be a manager, but it's obvious that neither of those two things have ever been shown to show a strong relationship to being a good manager. In fact, Gallup Research, and you can check their website out, Gallup Research, it's pretty awesome. They're doing research all the time. But they found that only 10% of human beings are naturally wired to be great managers. And some others, while not naturally gifted, are teachable. But companies choose candidates with the right talent for the job only 18% of the time. Think about that. So only 18% of managers actually have the capabilities and the characteristics and the talent to actually be successful and productive managers. So that's a bit scary. CEOs can create strategies, investors can optimize capital, and marketers can create demand. But when it comes to building products and offerings, serving clients, and developing internal processes, middle managers make things happen. Because if you think about it, the low-level employees, more often than not, are the ones that have the direct interaction with your customers. And if those individuals are not happy, they don't feel valued, they don't feel motivated, they don't feel as if their voice matters, their input matters, due to their relationship with their manager, I mean, it's unfathomable to me that's not more of a focus on making sure managers are good managers, making sure those low-level employees have everything they need and feel as valued and motivated as possible. So anyway, another thing, demonstrate appreciation for contributions big and small, right? So create a culture of thanking employees, whether that is through monetary rewards, honoring top performers, or even writing little sticky notes and pinning them on a cork board or in somebody's cubicle saying thank you. It goes a long way. I don't know the last time I was upset by somebody saying thank you to me. I more often than not, it makes me feel really good. And how simple is it to just say, you know what, thank you very much, I appreciate what you did. give credit when it's due. If somebody does something right, if somebody's the one who came up with an idea or carried through a project, say thanks. You did a good job. John Smith, you're the man. I appreciate all the work you did. It's huge. It goes a long way, especially for morale of an employee. Again, a simple thank you goes a long way. Commit to open and honest communication so that employees understand. Make sure that employees understand the why behind their jobs, what they're expected to achieve, and why it is important to the greater good of the organization and the greater good of themselves, the employee. Outlining these goals, clear, concise goals. Collaboration is valued. Leaders listen to employee feedback and encourage it. So I've heard a lot before. I've talking to people that individuals, low-level people be talking, well, I don't know why we do it this way. It's so, unsuccessful. We should change it up, but the bosses make us do it, although they're never here, yada, yada. That should never be the case. Bosses should have a constant presence, constantly asking for input on how things should be done as well as humanly possible. And I think that's going to only form a respectful relationship in all directions. Encourage employees to share their ideas with you via an email suggestion program. It can increase motivation, encourage teamwork, and promote loyalty within your organization. Showing your employees that you want to hear their ideas can boost employee engagement big time. All right. Again, having a voice, being valued is huge. That disconnect between upper management and decision makers, decision makers, like I talked about, and the low-level workers actually performing the work. That can't happen. They have to be constantly engaged with one another, constant connection, constant relationship to make sure that they're, everything is running as successfully and optimally as possible. Continual improvement. And you're not going to continuously improve if the low level and the upper level aren't communicating on a regular basis. Support that career path development. We kind of talked about that, but making sure that people have options. You can meet other upper level employees that maybe somebody might aspire to get to one day. Make sure there's opportunity for that. Commitment to growth shows employees that there is a future for them in that company. Engage in social interactions outside of work. Have a commitment to the community where the company operates, right? So participation in these events, it's a great way to strengthen relationships and adds an enjoyable social dimension to work. So when colleagues feel connected, productivity improves. When everybody respects one another, they hang out outside of work together, that a relationship forms that basically yields productivity. Understand the driver is most meaningful to employees. It can work towards creating a more motivated and high-performing workforce. Employees over profit. Again, committing to an intentional culture that's open, transparent, and enables employees to thrive is important for retaining performers. Again, retaining employees, good employees, is pivotal to long-term success. Whether it's participating in those community events, celebrating coworkers, or fostering more open communication, organizations can create a great place to work, important for retaining top performers. Retaining good employees, top performing employees is crucial to long-term success of the company and of the employee. Excuse me. But again, we have to focus on the fact that employees are the number one priority. Having a voice matters to that engagement. Like I said, solicit that employee feedback on everything. Make sure that they have the voice. I keep saying that time and time again, but it's very important that employees feel involved, like they matter, or else that employee engagement or retaining employees is just not going to happen. Use surveys as often as possible. Provide as many perks as possible. Kind of talked about Google a little bit, but they have that free ride to and from work. They have unlimited free snacks. They allow you to bring your dog to work on a regular basis. They have those maternity policies that I talked about with Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Fitness classes, which we talked about with the wellness programs. Any perk that you can give an employee to make them feel more comfortable and happy at work and engaged at work, the better. One of my biggest pet peeves that I've had some experience with in the past, companies should not fire people without providing an ample opportunity to improve. I think by doing that, it just maximizes and creates a huge amount of fear within your employee base, which provides opportunity for huge rifts between other, coworkers, and it just maximizes fear. So the fact that shouldn't happen, minimize that fear, give them every opportunity to succeed. Obviously, there are going to be times that, firing or letting somebody go is a must, but it needs to be the absolute last resort with, after multiple opportunities. These people were hired initially for a purpose. Utilize them to the best of their ability, and if it doesn't work, let them go, but it has to be after every possible opportunity is exhausted. Company leaders conduct employee forums and respond to questions and concerns. Those high-level employees, CEOs, managers, they need to be among the low-level employees as often as possible. Talking to them, have a constant presence, because that's going to create, again, that feeling of value, that they matter, that their voice matters, and that they're not just somebody stuck in a closet, stuck in a corner that doesn't matter. That's just being utilized for their 40 hours a week to make sure that they make money for the company. They have to be viewed as people, valued as employees. Communicate clearly and often. It's obviously a key in any relationship, communication is, but keep communication a top priority and initiate conversation with your employees. Regularly check in with them to offer feedback, give comments as positive as humanly possible, as often as possible, and ask them questions that are both informal and specific. Be crystal clear to avoid any misunderstandings. Those clear and concise goals are hugely, hugely important to the success of any employee at any level. Making sure they are aware of what they're doing, what they need to be doing, and what they're working towards. So something else, even though it seems obvious, it can be difficult to be available to your employees, but make sure you have an open door policy, and that when employees have questions or want to talk, that you're there for them. You answer the phone, you're at your desk, whatever it might be, as often as possible. Be as available as possible. So happiness leads to greater levels of profits. So obviously we talked about happiness a lot, but just wanted to make sure that I wanted to restate that. So I have a few more stats for you real quick. Research, so it's obviously shown that when workers are happy, they're more effective collaborators working toward common goals. That's probably fairly obvious too, but again, we're looking at happiness, and we have a great opportunity within our workplace to create that happiness with our employee wellness programs and those employee engagement programs. At those times of happiness, individuals tend to be more creative and better at solving problems. They're better at working with others. They are obviously more productive. So again, creating that culture of wellness is hugely important. Employees over profit. Something interesting, a study by the economists at the University of Warwick, which is in England, found that happiness led to a 12% spike in productivity, while unhappy workers proved to be 10% less productive. So that's a 22% swing in productivity, right? So that's huge. 22% is huge. Kind of sound like Donald Trump there, but I didn't mean to. So a few more things that I wanted to restate real quick. Say thank you. Seems obvious, but say thank you. Make employees feel cared for and valued. Make sure you're giving your employees clear and concise goals. Their opinion and their ideas matter. Again, you gotta take as much advice as you can, as much feedback as you can from your employees. Generous benefits. We kind of talked about the benefits with the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. Provide as many benefits and perks as you possibly can to make employees feel welcome, feel at home, feel comfortable, feel happy in the workplace. They can't fear for their jobs. You can't have continuous, constant firings. You can't be firing 8 people a month or 5 people a month or 5 people a week, whatever, because it's going to scare people away, make them fear for their jobs, and not be creative and productive. Create that healthy, happy, engaged culture of valuing employees, healthy environment that utilizes exercise, nutrition, diet. They can get up and walk around if they need to. They can stand if they need to. that relationship with the manager, it's so crucial. I've said that a bunch of times already, but making sure managers are fit for the job, that they're good for the job, that they should be there, they have a good relationship with their employees, that they're positive, that they're energetic, that they're good. I know that's pretty vague, but professional development, making sure employees are able to advance their careers, do what they want to do, that they have the option. Google, I think the one place that I would recommend checking out if you get the opportunity is Google. Read about the way that they treat their employees, their employee engagement approaches, their employee wellness programs. Human happiness has large and positive causal effects on productivity. I think that's probably not anything groundbreaking, but it needs to be said and restated. Positive emotions appear to invigorate human beings. Who would have thought, right? Another Gallup survey real quick found that only 13% of employees are engaged at work. 13% are engaged. That means what? 87% of employees are not actively engaged at work? That is terrible numbers. A Gallup poll released in January of 2018, so that's really recent, found that 85% of employees worldwide are either not engaged or actively disengaged. So again, why is that? Is it happiness related? I'm sure that's a huge contributor to it. So again, we have significant opportunities and significant possibilities to make a dent in this kind of stuff, right? So lastly, I want to say, by one recent measure, this disengagement or not being engaged or active disengagement, it can cost U.S. companies between 450 and 550 billion annually in lost revenue because individuals don't want to be there. They don't like their job. They don't like their boss. They don't like their work. They don't like the way things operate. So again, we have a significant opportunity to make an impact on this. And employees over profit, people. Employees over profit, it's only going to benefit the company and the head honchos long term. Valuing employees, making sure they're happy, making sure they're healthy. It's key to long-term success of both individuals on a personal level, health and wellness, and then the wellness and the profitability of the company long term. So that's all I have. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it. Hopefully I did a little bit better than last time. Lastly, I want to leave you with one more time my email. It's Cultivating Health Podcast @gmail.com. Then also check out my Facebook page. It is Cultivating Health Podcast or @Cultivating Health Podcast. So I'd love to hear from anybody who's willing to talk to me, who would maybe like some help, want me to get involved, talk to you, sit down. I love this stuff, so I would be more than happy to talk to anybody who's willing to talk to me. So thanks very much for your time, and I'll see you next time.